when people ask about how a merger and acquisition and process or sale of a company is going to go, and sort of process-wise, it's often very difficult to give a general sense of that, both just from specific terms of deal, but as well as just the identity of the buyer is so important. The same transaction on paper may take twice as long and cost 3 times more with one buyer versus another buyer, just depending on their process, how detail-oriented they are, who they are, how they think, what they do. Examples of that is just, whether the buyer is offering cash or stock makes a huge difference in the deal, and the nature of the buyer is what's going to dictate that. In particular, if it's private company stock that's not liquid versus public company stock that can be traded, cash is obviously cash, so if you can get cash, people usually prefer that. A public company buyer has certain SEC regulations they will need to comply with over time, perhaps disclosing the agreement publicly after it's signed. Private company buyer may be a little more nimble and flexible in how they do things. The size of the company makes a big difference. US buyers have a certain way of looking at the world, a certain way of doing things. Buyers in other countries, deals get done differently in Europe, in Asia, elsewhere, and a lot of times that they'll adapt to a US style of deal to a certain extent, but it's not always obvious how that's going to go. And so when you're going into looking at selling your company, sort of the more you can understand about the buyer, how they've done things, have they done other deals, looking at other deals they've done, talking ideally to CEOs or people involved with other companies they've acquired, you get a really good sense of how the transaction is going to proceed, because who that buyer is will make the deal vary more than one might think.